This is without a doubt one of the most twisted people I have ever seen on TikTok.
I just wanted to be happy.
Back in 2020, a very famous TikTok influencer known as Zoe Laverne was exposed for having a relationship with a 13-year-old boy while she was 19 years old. Despite the fact that during this time many people had spoken out against her and talked about how awful this was, she brushed it off as a mistake and claimed that it was just an innocent relationship and that nothing happened, aside from a kiss. Prior to admitting this, however, she denied having a romantic relationship with him whatsoever until it was proven through screenshots, text messages, and photos. Despite all of this, she still continued to grow over the past 5 years, going from 17 million followers to over 21 million followers, and still to this day gaining millions of views on her TikToks. So why is all of this being stirred up again now, 5 years later? Well, recently, the boy that she had a relationship with, to put it lightly, has come out and shared his story regarding this entire situation. Not only does he confirm many of the suspicions that people have had over the years regarding this situation, but he also shares new information that, at least in the public eye, people had no idea about. So today we will be discussing one of the most twisted people on TikTok, Zoe Laverne. And I do want to let you know that yes, this story gets very dark. So I have discussed this issue many moons ago. Back then, this situation was a pretty big deal, and there were other creators who have discussed this topic as well. Zoe Laverne had grown in popularity all the way back when TikTok was still considered Musical.ly. She gained a following the same way almost every other original TikTok influencer did, which was by making lip-syncing videos and doing TikTok dances. But a lot of people remember her as the girl who started crying and threw a tantrum when another popular TikToker, Charli D'Amelio, was passing her in followers.
Literally crying about this for like an hour because it's just so like pathetic that like she just comes in and like almost feels like she's so close to passing me, and everybody's reminding me that she's gonna pass me, and I just want to prove this that I am better than her because I am Zoe Laverne and I am literally the star of TikTok.
What a truly tragic day indeed. Anyway, her core audience seemed to be in the pre-teen age bracket, and she became very close with one of her young followers and eventually lured him into a deeper relationship when he was 13 years old and she was 19. Zoe tried her best to keep this relationship a secret from the public, but eventually DMs from her friends were leaked exposing the situation. Zoe did her best to deny the accusations about the relationship she had with Connor and dismissed them as rumors until proof came out shortly after, which caused things to spiral out of control and provided even more information about how horrific this situation truly was. So Zoe took a little break, and after being off of the internet for a while due to the major backlash, she made a return and acted as if nothing had ever happened, which is unsurprising considering how much she tried to downplay the situation while it was happening and tried to minimize it as much as possible. Well, this method actually seemed to work in her favor for the time being, considering she gained 4 million additional followers after all of this had taken place. But now in the current day, which is about 5 years later, Connor is taking the time to share his side of the story and expose more details about what Zoe had allegedly done to him. We are going to go over all of those details today. So we're going to take this from the top and start at the beginning of the timeline, at least from the public's perspective. When we get into Connor's side of the story later in this video, things started before all of this. But since it's been a while, I want to refresh your memory on what exactly happened back in 2020. Things started getting noticed in the public eye after October 24th, 2020, which is when messages between Zoe's other ex-boyfriend named Cody and a friend were leaked. These messages focused around Zoe and Connor and accused Zoe of quote-unquote engaging in pedophilia. This was briefly mentioned in my previous video, but I'm going to go over the full message in this one. So just some background information to get some context. The white texts seem to be the friend, and the gray texts seem to be Zoe's ex Cody. It seems that the friend had left the friendship, if I'm following this correctly, and additionally, I have blocked out Connor's name in these screenshots because these are screenshots from my previous video, and I don't think I have the originals anymore. But at that time, Connor had not come out publicly and shared his story. Now that he has come out publicly and shared his story, I find it more appropriate that I can say his name in these texts, and it'll also provide a better understanding for what's going on. With that being said, I'm going to be honest with you in hopes that it truly stays between you and I, because I genuinely don't know what else to do. I left because of her interactions with Connor. They got very intense, and it's something I do not stand by whatsoever. It's I had told Zoe that if she stopped and minimized contact with him, that she wouldn't have to lose me, and it didn't have to come to that. So she changed her story and said she was joking about the things with Connor, but I knew at that point she was lying, and they both were lying. Connor had reached out to me a few times apologizing about lying and that he knows I don't deserve to be lied to, etc., and assured me they stopped, but Dawson just reached out to me yesterday and said that they still FaceTime all day every day and haven't stopped. First of all, I just want to say how horrifying it is that the child in this situation is the one that has to apologize. That is something he should have never had to do. This is something that should have never happened in the first place. But it gets worse. More into that, she became very toxic to my mental health after my breakup with Jack. She knew I was struggling mentally into a very dark place, and on one instance, she went to the extent of making a fake texting app pretending to be Jack just to put me deeper into my mental hole. She saw that he was attempting conversations with me, which wasn't attention she was getting from you, and so on several accounts, she told me, as well as a few others, that you were making texting apps to text her and call her ugly. She at one point in front of so many said that you used to beat the crap out of her. And I snapped on her because I grew up in an abusive household, and I told her she has no idea what the meaning of having the crap beat out of her was. We've done nothing but fought about these things, and she talks nothing but poor on you. I've watched her fake texts, fake calls, etc., etc. Dawson and I spoke yesterday, and he told me she's trying to be with him again, yet doing the whole lying to everyone else as well, because of her and Connor. Nothing really makes sense to me on how someone can lie so easily, and it petrifies me. Yeah, this entire thing is absolutely unhinged. First of all, the worst thing, obviously, is this girl is even involved with a 13-year-old in the way that she was. This is a friend of hers claiming it was the victim and child in this situation, Connor, felt the need to apologize on his and Zoe's behalf when it was Zoe the entire time that should have been apologizing to her friend and not getting involved in this whatsoever. On top of that, though, we see an entire other piece of this puzzle that is Zoe's corrupt and disgusting nature, which is that she can easily lie, according to this text message exchange, and that she had allegedly faked text messages between her friend's ex to try and torment her. All of this sounds completely deranged, if I'm being completely honest. These are accusations, of course, but with context clues, we have seen Zoe lie in the past very easily. There is also plenty of evidence, some of which she had even admitted to, regarding the accusations against her, not just from Connor, but from her friends and the public perception as well. Going back to more texts, I'm so sorry I wasn't looking at anything from your perspective when that entire situation came out. When I left California and was gone for so long, I almost forgot how easily manipulation comes from her. Now that I left Zoe, she has both her parents thinking that I'm some horrible person that did her so dirty, all while Zoe is 19, by law, engaging in with a 13-year-old, which is the only reason I left. I'm so happy you're doing well and finally found happiness, Cody. You deserve it. I'm almost there. Getting into Cody's response, I really appreciate you being honest with me, but I am so sorry for what she has done to you. That sounds effing horrible and traumatizing. No one should have to go through that. It's a terrible stomach feeling, and I know exactly how it feels to be exhausted and anxious because of how someone acts. I don't even know what to say about what Zoe said about me. She acts like she wants to be friends, and I have a whole recording saying, no, I can't be civil with you. I have so much to say, but I'm about to head into a meeting. I'll reach back out later. Remember your worth, Amber. It's about how you push through everything, and I mean every single little thing. She responds, I know that I'll heal and I'll be alright mentally because of the support system I have here at home. Where I'm most worried is about Connor, because right now he won't understand because he's so young. But 10 years from now, he's going to look back and say to himself, I was because in all honesty, that's what it is. These are claims made by her friend. I'm just putting that out there. And the scary thing is, it's literally a matter of time before someone turns her in or before his parents find out. And it breaks my heart for his mom because I'm actually close with her. And she has no idea how they interact and speak with each other. So she knew Connor's mom and knew that they were interacting inappropriately. I'm gonna say that I feel like she should have said something to his parents. Absolutely, if she knew that this was going on. I genuinely hope after this conversation she did say something. It's heart-shattering, and Zoe is so good at manipulation to make everyone believe she is the victim in every situation. We've seen that time and time again. That's not just an accusation made by the friend. That is something that we have seen several times in her TikToks.
I am always a target to every single person online.
Thank you for even reaching out. It means so much. I wasn't aware of her calling you or anything because she only ever says you are constantly trying to contact her, and she always throws so much shade on her fandom account about things like that, about etc. Speculation began to circulate after these text messages were leaked, and eventually Zoe came out with her first response, which was littered with lies.
I'm here to address something that makes me sick to my stomach, that makes me genuinely hurt, that puts me in a place to where like my mental health is like bizarre right now.
First off, two things. One, she is already starting with weaponizing her mental health, and I feel confident in saying that because not only does she say that every time she's pulled into a situation like this specifically, including right now as this is resurfacing, but
me as a 19-year-old girl should not have to go, and him as a 13-year-old boy should not have to go through this situation at all. This is destroying mental health. This could get somebody in trouble for something they didn't even do. Put yourself in my shoes for just one time. Think about other people's feelings before you put somebody else down. Just because I'm 19 doesn't mean I don't cry. Just because I'm 19 doesn't mean that I don't have a heart. There's a heart in everyone's freaking body.
When all that Connor happened, I put myself into a hospital. So, because I was so confused with what I did. Why am I on jail? Because I didn't do anything to be in jail. I kissed a minor. Yeah, that's bad.
When Connor made his most recent video, he talked about how she would allegedly threaten to end her life if she was ever put in jail over this.
She had told me if she went to jail for what she did, that she would off herself.
Going back to her live stream from 2020.
I don't know where this screenshot came from. I don't know if Amber actually sent it. I don't know if it's photoshopped. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it was said, whatever the case is. But I am here to tell the truth and tell you that I am 19 years old and I know better than to do anything with a 13-year-old minor. My career is set on minors. I have little kids that look up to me on a daily basis.
I find it so interesting that her reasoning for knowing better to not do anything with a 13-year-old was not because it's wrong, not because it's a disgusting thing to do at her age, but because it would put her career on the line. That's the first thing out of her mouth after that sentence. Also, she's obviously lying. I didn't know if I needed to clarify that again. And she actually doubles down on this later in the video.
You need to realize that I do have younger supporters. Therefore, I wouldn't risk my career, first of all, something that I have worked so hard for the past 4 years, to just like do something that stupid that is so easily to be brought to social media. Like anything that influencers do will get brought to social media. I'm pretty sure I'm not that stupid. I mean, I'm pretty stupid, but I'm not that stupid.
Bruh.
But earlier in the video, she also says this.
Yes, maybe in my past, I've done things that is not very mature to do in front of minors and, vaped whatever in front of them. If that was the case, that was the case, etc.
I think it's so specific and interesting that she mentions vaping in front of them, and we'll get into that later. Just keep a little mental note in the back of your head for when we get into Connor's evidence.
But the fact of people saying that one of my best friends that was a supporter of me for 3 years is unacceptable, is disgusting, makes me sick to my stomach, literally makes me want to throw up.
Notice how in this sentence she says it's unacceptable and disgusting, but she says nothing about it being true or not. She will deny it throughout this entire video, but her first response to the thought of this in the first sentence is unacceptable. Disgusting. When you bring up something as serious as this, the next thing out of your mouth and your follow-up sentence should be it's not true if you didn't do it. And then after that, go on to describe how awful it is that someone said something like that. Skipping ahead a little bit here, 2 more things.
I can't even ever imagine doing something like that, considering I know what's right and wrong. I've grown up. I've matured. I know what's right and wrong. Yes, maybe I make some mistakes sometimes. Maybe I do some things on social media that's not very appropriate, but I wouldn't do something like that.
First of all, she says, I know right from wrong. She's saying she knows that this is wrong. And then she says, I would never do that. She didn't say, I never did that, or I didn't do that. She says, I would never do that. And you might be asking, TehMimi, isn't that like a really small detail that you shouldn't be nitpicking so much? It's a pattern I notice when people lie too much. They subtly tweak their language just to sound convincing enough while still feeling like they're technically not lying because they never said they didn't, they just said they would never. The same thing applies for when she says, I know better than to do that. It's manipulative, and it's also just as bad as this clip.
How are people defending you? Because I'm telling the truth. Pretty sure if I was guilty, I'd be bawling my eyes out right now, which is what I always do when I'm guilty.
one of the live streams after that, when she admits to doing everything, she is bawling her eyes out because she was caught.
Don't cry. It's okay.
Shut it off.
She wants to say hi to her fans. Say hi to him, Zoe.
Hi, guys.
She even has Connor in this live stream, and then she has him make his own live stream denying everything.
But besides the point, Connor's my best friend. I love him as my best friend. I care about him as my best friend. I don't like when people hurt him, and he doesn't like when people hurt me. Like, literally, I've never seen such a good friend in my entire life.
I just want to point out here, as you see him in this clip, look at how little he looks. Even as 13, this kid looks like he's 10 or 11 years old, and she's 19 at the time, lying to the faces of her audience during this video, by the way, and making this little kid lie. Very shortly after these live streams, photos started to leak of Zoe kissing Connor. So I fully believe that this was shared to prove that she was lying about everything in her first live stream. After this, Zoe makes another response, this time admitting that yes, they had a relationship. But even this was filled with nothing but her lying, making terrible excuses, and victimizing herself again.
It just happened. We both were in a dark place when we first, and friends do that. They catch feelings for each other. That's not a bad thing.
I do not miss the days when everybody would start off with, I was in a dark place. I forget what I said in the original video I made about her, but I think I said she was the dark place. And yeah, I completely stand by that. This person is completely unhinged and is
Yes, the age is a bad thing. Yes, it's wrong. Yes, it's not good. And we both realized that, and we stopped because we didn't want to get this out of proportion. We didn't want this to happen. We knew that it was wrong, and we wanted to stop, and we did.
I pointed this out in my previous video. I'm gonna say it again. There is no we in this situation. This is a her situation. She was an adult and he was a child. He could not consent to what she was doing. So again, there is no we. She was the one in the wrong. She took advantage of a child, and that's putting it very mildly.
I'm not a I'm not a and I will continue to say that. I don't care what anybody has to say. I'm not a
So for legal reasons here, I will say allegedly, but considering all of the information Connor gets into in the video he recently posted and the one that was taken down that had a lot of very horrific evidence in it, and going by the laws of your state, you technically could be labeled as a pedophile. You're just not convicted as one, at least at the time of recording this video. What drives me crazy is another clip from this video. She also admits that they kept it to themselves because they know it was wrong. Again, I hate the usage of the word they in this situation, or the word we in this situation, because she is the one in control. She did this to a child. She coerced this child. This child could not consent. This is there is no we in this, but she did admit it was kept under wraps because she knew it was wrong.
That's why we kept it to ourselves, because we realized it was wrong.
And then she has the audacity to say that everyone on the internet is blowing this out of proportion and making this into a big deal when it shouldn't be that big of a deal.
But because, like I said, it got brought to social media, people are making it such a big issue.
She also shared in this live stream that he is still her best friend even though they're not allowed to talk anymore. Not only did she say it in this video, but ex-friends of hers have come out and stated that she claimed she stopped communicating with Connor, only to find out later that she was lying about that and still trying to contact him. So while I don't believe she lied when she said she's not allowed to communicate with Connor anymore, I don't think that made her stop trying. And that changes the tone of this next clip.
And Connor was my best friend, still is, even though we can't talk. He's still my best friend. And
people had caught that she actually was trying to contact him again. She had commented on his live streams. People have noticed that there were these things called bond bracelets, which he was wearing one and she was wearing one.
Bond bracelet, a bracelet that you can share with your significant other, often in a long-distance relationship. When you touch your bracelet, your significant other's bracelet will go off. A true gesture of romance for lovers who spend their days apart.
Zoe and the 13-year-old boy were both seen in TikToks wearing bond bracelets. It's important to note that Zoe has denied that they were in a relationship even after these allegations have started, but she has admitted to them being best friends and has also said this. It's also notable to point out that this bracelet has its own app that you can access on your phone, where you can send each other encrypted messages, meaning that they are super secure and can't be easily traced. I mention this because she claims that she can't talk to him. She also claims that she hasn't talked to him, but we know Zoe to be a liar at this point, so I hesitate to trust that, especially on top of her actively commenting on his live streams after all of this has gone down. Most recently, she made a TikTok of herself lip-syncing to audio by Cardi B saying, "It's the way I am until I effing die, and if you don't like it, then die first," in a response to a comment that called her a child. This video was only available to people she was close friends with on TikTok, but somebody leaked it.
He made me happy in many different ways, and I made him happy in many different ways. We both were really close and caught feelings, and we didn't really understand what was going on. And even though people will say well, you're old enough to realize it's wrong, I just wanted to be happy.
Again, the usage of we, I'm not gonna let it go. That bothers me so much because this is a child. You realized it was wrong. He was the one who was confused and didn't know. You are old enough to know better. You said it in your previous video, and you even said, well, for those who say you should know better, she says, I just wanted to be happy.
I just wanted to be happy.
Be happy in a relationship with somebody who's your own age.
Again, I'm sorry, and there's no excuse in the world for what I did. And people can hate me, but I lost a lot of supporters during this time. And like I said before, I don't blame you. You do you. Support whoever you want to support.
Things seemed to die down after a while, and she continued to post on TikTok as if nothing had ever happened, and every once in a while when it would be brought up, she would talk about things and brush it off in a way that was really odd. One of the TikToks being me coming back to TikTok after being canceled for the 100th time, and other similar posts like this. Throughout the duration of the past 5 years, she has continued to grow. She went from 17 million followers to 21 million followers. She still receives millions of views on her TikToks to this day. And recently she has converted to Christianity, so she can no longer be held accountable for her previous sins. For example of what I'm talking about, this is a post she made quite some time ago under one of her TikToks, and it states, I am aware of all the bad things I have done, and I really am sorry. Words can never express how sorry I am. I look back and feel so ashamed and embarrassed, but at the same time, my past choices grew me into the woman I am today. If I could go back in time and take it all back, I would. But sadly, life doesn't work that way. All I can do now is learn and grow from my mistakes and be a better person. And maybe spend a little bit of time in a jail cell, in my opinion, but okay. I don't want to come on here and act like a perfect Christian or even as a perfect person, because I'm not, and that's why I need Jesus. A lot of the things I've done were twisted and turned into much worse, and no, I'm not making excuses. I mean that. No, Zoe, the things you did were not twisted out of proportion to make it sound worse than it was. The things you did were twisted. You are twisted. Things I have done 3+ years ago. This was a post from a couple years ago, so I'm under the assumption she is including the situation with Connor in this. Do not define me as a person anymore. I am so much different now than I was then. I'm not posting this for attention or for you to feel sorry for me. I'm posting this to apologize for my past actions because I feel like I have never took accountability for my actions, but I can assure you I do now. No, you don't. No, you don't. She's still posting, by the way, like nothing happened, and she's still posting TikToks talking about feeling down and talking about her exes stalking her. She's not taking accountability. I pray to God every night begging for forgiveness for my sins, but that is all I can do now. Reminding me of the things I've done doesn't break me, because if it weren't for the things I've done, I wouldn't be who I am today. She's stating this like she's proud of the person she's become, but you can become a decent person without being a predatory creep. That's such a sad and pathetic way to cope. And I mean that in the sense of this specifically. I understand people say their past experiences shape who they are, and that's true. But in this case, I wouldn't be so proud to say something like that, Zoe. It's lacking a lot of self-awareness for me, but again, that's just my opinion. I hope most of you can find it in your heart to forgive me, and if not, that's okay. It's not your audience's or the public's responsibility or burden to forgive you. It's Connor's and his loved ones and family and friends and anybody else you've affected. For the ones who loved me no matter what, thank you. I can't express in words how thankful I am for you. Thank you for reading. Considering she herself had claimed she had been canceled like 100 times, aside from her crying over Charli D'Amelio getting more followers than her and what we're discussing today, I'm going to assume that yeah, there probably have been several other scandals with Zoe Laverne, but when most people hear about her who know about her history, the first thing that'll come to mind is this situation. That being said, whenever she receives any criticism, especially when it involves Connor, she responds to it in a very vague way, talking about how the past is in the past.
Here's what it all comes down to, okay? I have a whole family. I am a mom, okay? I am a wife. Like, my past is not me. I am not my past. I do not live in the past anymore. And all of you live in my past. And it is so frustrating. Do you know how hard it is to want to do better and grow and change and be a better person? And then people just bring your past just back and back and back in your life? Like, do you know how that feels?
But she doesn't talk about what happened in the past. She just talks about how she has changed, she's a wife, a mother, which is great. All of those things are wonderful. I have no issues with any of those things. What I do have an issue with are the titles she just so happened to leave out, such as being a liar, being manipulative, and, being a
I'm sure plenty of you do know how that feels. So I don't understand why it's always gotta be me. I don't bother anybody. I don't bother a soul. I am literally silent. Like, I'm literally silent about everything. When I could literally just open my mouth and say so much, but no, I'm silent and I mind my own business and I do my own thing. Why can't any of you do that? We're in our 20s, right? Isn't it time to grow up? Like, life is not all about drama all the time. I want peace, and I'm gonna keep my peace, no matter what any of you say.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and in fact, so much of it would be a distraction that I'm only gonna stick to this one thing. I really hate the way that she dismisses what she did to Connor as drama. It is not drama. She has ruined his life. She has done violating things to him. Things that, in my opinion, she should have been or should be arrested for. And it doesn't matter how much time has passed. It doesn't matter what person she has grown into. She has done that, and he is still dealing with the damages of it. So for her to be minimizing this and acting like that because she has converted to Christianity, has a family, is a wife, is doing so much better now, while disregarding everything he is still dealing with to this day, it's vile in my opinion. It is such a disgrace. But you know what? I'm tired of going over all of Zoe's excuses. We've heard her speak about this several times at this point, both directly and very vaguely. Quite frankly, I am tired of listening to her victimize herself over and over and over again when she knows exactly what she did, and she knows what she did was absolutely atrocious, just to say the least. In reality, it's probably something that she should be in jail for, and it's something that she has never served actual consequence for, and for that alone, she should count her blessings. So we're going to get into Connor's side of the story now. He has just come out recently, 5 years later, sharing his side of the story, providing evidence to back up his claims, and providing additional information that the public had no idea about. And yes, it makes this entire situation significantly worse. Connor had uploaded 2 videos. The first video is him sharing his story, and the second video is him elaborating further on it while providing proof and evidence to back up his claims. And I will say that the second video he posted was taken down at least twice to my knowledge. The first time he uploaded it with all of the information, the second time he uploaded it with some of the information censored, and both times it seems like TikTok had taken the video down. We'll get into that more after we go over his first video with the initial claims. Let's get into Connor's video.
My name is Connor, and at the age of 13, I was statutory R-worded by a popular TikTok influencer.
The first thing that comes out of his mouth is that he was statutory R-worded. YouTube has been cracking down harder and harder on certain videos, on certain words, rather, should I say, and certain videos. But anyway, he gets into details that we have never been exposed to 5 years ago when discussing this situation.
This happened 5 years ago, and I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with the situation, and it's taken me a while to come to terms to talk about it. I do want to start off by saying that a lot of the things that you see on the internet of people coming out saying that they were also victims of Zoe, or also that they were involved in the situation in any sense, trying to claim that they underwent any sexual or romantic abuse through her, are completely false. One thing I won't discredit is her being inappropriate on the phone with other minors, saying inappropriate things, or let alone just manipulating other children. But I can confidently say that the extensivity that it got to with me, it has been with just me and no other children.
Immediately halted the possibility where Zoe could come out and say, well, that person was lying and that person was lying and I don't even know who that person is, I've never spoken to them in my life, to derail Connor's story. He does go into detail about how she has had inappropriate conversations, but not to the extent that she was with him.
It's taken me a very long time to talk about this solemnly because of the backlash I have received from the media, because I still am in high school and I still am a minor. But third of all, because I was trying to press legal action against her and I didn't want my case to be tampered with due to my social media posts. For starters, I was a fan. I did join her fan base in like 2018. I had a fan page and everything. And I went on a tour stop in Washington, DC in 2018 to meet her for the very first time. Now, at the time, there was a lot of other influencers on this tour. We went to solemnly take pictures. Like, it was for fans to meet their favorite creators. Now, over the time of 2018 to 2019, she would talk to fans that I ended up becoming friends with. We had mutual friends, and I was then introduced to her through, she added me on Snapchat, and we would talk every now and then. It was all kept to a normal, cordial level.
I'm pretty sure this is before he turned 13. I don't know if he was 11 or 12 when this happened. It's bad enough at 13, but an 11 or 12-year-old?
Now, in August of 2019, she had a tour stop in my hometown that I went to, which I went with two of my friends, and after the show, I was talking with her. She brought me upstairs to see the venue. It was more of a secluded thing from the rest of the people that were there to attend. I also attended another one in December of 2019, so by the third time of me meeting her in person, she knew who I was just based off of seeing me. Now in 2020, I still was keeping it going with this fan page, and I had a lot of mutual friends that talked to her, and we would all FaceTime and group FaceTimes, but slowly it started sectoring off to just private FaceTime calls between the two of us. In April of 2020, things did start to get a little more personal.
I don't care if she was 19 or even 18 years old when this first happened. That's disgusting.
It was causing issues between her and her ex-boyfriend, Cody. He was concerned about things, all of that.
She is complaining about her current relationship issues to a child. By the way, this is the same person that we were reading leaked messages from earlier in this video.
Now, my birthday is on May 10th, and at the time, it was COVID, so I was having a drive-by birthday party past my house. My mom had reached out to Zoe to see if she'd be able to make it out here because she knew how much I had idolized her and thought it would make my whole birthday if she was able to come here to surprise me. It didn't end up working out, and she came out here on Memorial Day, which was only like a week or two after my birthday, and things were a little uncomfortable for the time being, but everything was normal.
What I find shocking is that in a lot of cases, it takes much longer for people to realize what happened to them was wrong. And for Connor, it seems like he discovered this and understood it pretty quickly. That during it happening, he was uncomfortable. I really want this to stick with people. There are several points in this video where he talks about being uncomfortable while she's there. He talks about feeling discomfort.
Now, it was about 2 weeks later, the first week of June, when her and her ex-boyfriend had broken up, and she was in Tennessee at the time with her friend Amber, which then they both drove out here instantly to come visit me. Now, I was under the impression that they were only coming to visit for a week, but because they had both just gotten fresh out of relationships, they both made the decision to move here for a fresh start.
So it starts off as she wants to come and visit him to they're moving there. During this time frame where she's, I guess, breaking up with her boyfriend, her and another friend decide to not just come out to where Connor lives, but move there. What? Why? Why specifically? Why are you deciding to move there out of any state that you can move to have a fresh start? Why are you deciding to move there?
Now, prior to her coming and visiting me, she did discuss with me on the phone that she liked me. I thought she was messing around. I thought it was just a funny little prank. She told me that she liked me and that when she came to visit me in May, she wanted to hold my hand. She wanted to, kind of be more intimate. Now, at the time that she had came here, I had just turned 13, maybe a week prior.
She's telling him that she has feelings for him, a child. She's telling him that she wants to hold his hand. He is confused doesn't believe she's even being serious. She's actively planning this. She is actively coordinating a plan where she comes to visit this kid and then wants to live in proximity to him.
I had a very close friend group at the time that I would talk to, that I had voiced about being a little uncomfortable with the fact of knowing that she liked me and her still coming here, but I was under the impression I only had to see her for a week, so I was in fear of, if anything were to go wrong, I only have to deal with her for a week and I can move along and not speak to her again.
He even mentions that he is uncomfortable with her liking him and coming to visit him. At 13, he is uncomfortable about this. I just want to put that in the perspective because even at 13, he's getting the idea like something's off. So if he at 13 is uncomfortable by this, how is she at 19 okay with this? This poor kid. So he is scared. He is saying that, you know, if something happens, it'll be over within a week. So he's already afraid.
Now, because she did make the ultimate decision to come and move here, we continue to get closer and closer and closer.
This is where he starts to describe, in my opinion, what is the beginning of her manipulating him, because as we've discussed, he felt uncomfortable at first. He was afraid. He thought this was only going to last a week and then he wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. And then she stays. And then as time goes by, they get closer and closer and his mind starts to get warped because she's manipulating him. In my opinion, I guess. These are extraordinarily serious words and claims. So I do not take it lightly when I say this. I'm fairly confident that this is like the textbook definition of grooming. And this is where he also gets into the part where she starts showing physical signs of affection.
Now in June, she did kiss me. She did start to get more personal. She would try to seclude me off from my friends, from my family, try to get me away, whatever.
Trying to isolate somebody is also a part of grooming. And it's also a sign of other things like manipulation and abuse.
Now, if you were on social media back in this timeline, you could see that I defended her for everything she was ever accused for, canceled for, etc. I was so strung up and just trying to process real life because someone that I'd idolized for years was now living in my hometown, was somebody that was becoming my best friend, someone very close to me. And I was so caught up and just, wow, how is this real? That I wasn't paying attention to what was actively happening to me in the time being. Now, she kissed me, and as time went on, things started picking up to a worse and worse level.
This really breaks my heart too. I remember talking about this in my previous video that he was defending her and apologizing. She had made it seem like this was both of their faults. It was not. It was hers. She manipulated and groomed a child. In no way was this his fault. Of course he is going to lie and try to protect her. He was being manipulated by her and he was scared. This is something that nobody should be blaming him for. I totally understand the purpose of it though, because he's trying to share his thoughts and how seriously he was manipulated, but I genuinely hope that he doesn't feel any sense of guilt because this was not his fault. The people around him failed him, the system failed him, and he was taken advantage of by a predator. I'm going to warn you now, this is where things get even worse, to the point where we were not even aware of this as an audience 5 years ago when this was first circulating.
She would engage in conversations with me, sending me pictures, calling me on the phone, doing things on the phone with me, etc.
Everything that was talked about prior was, oh, we just kissed. This, according to Connor, had gone farther than a kiss.
Now keep in mind, I still was very highlighted by the fact that this girl was in my life because it was a surreal thing to me that I was too afraid to speak up and have her hate me and wonder where things would end up. And a lot of people ask where my parents were at this time, but growing up, I've been bullied all throughout middle school ever since I was younger. I didn't have a lot of friends, so straight off the bat, my parents thought that this was a good thing, and seeing how happy it made me from the start, that they thought that it would be a good thing for us to become friends and for us to be hanging out, whatever.
I think as a parent, this should at the very least go as an exact reason as to why you should not just let anybody come into your child's life. Oh, well, this person's a famous celebrity. This person's a famous influencer. We've heard this time and time again through stories throughout Hollywood, throughout other situations. Precautions should be taken. No matter how innocent you think that person is, it's your job as a parent to make sure that your child's protected. And I personally believe that in this situation, they did fail their child. And I'm not trying to make that sound like an attack on Connor. Connor because, of course, I'm sure he loves his parents. I'm not trying to make that sound hurtful or insulting. And I want to add in also, I don't think the parents in this situation did this intentionally or did this out of malice or anything like that. I think it was genuinely a mistake on their end, but it's a mistake that unfortunately held severe consequences for their child.
There was obviously a lot of restrictions on things. My mom would question things at times. She never thought that it was not weird, but I gave her that reassurance that things were fine.
As a child, it's not your responsibility for what happened. Even if you lied to your parents and said, oh no, nothing's going on, I'm sorry. In my opinion, the parents should have had more responsibility in this situation. It is not your fault. You are not to blame for this. The biggest one at fault here is Zoe. The other people involved are just unfortunately people who have failed to protect him from her.
Now, I specifically remember there was one specific day that we were hanging out and I was at her house and she had kind of just thrown herself on top of me and asked me if I was ready. My heart was beating super fast and I still specifically remember her asking me, are you okay? Like, your heart's beating super fast, are you okay? And I was in a moment of shock. I never thought things would ever evolve to this level. This girl had 20 million followers. I knew she had a career on the line. I always told myself she would never ever do anything to mess with her career or ruin her career. In this moment, I was in a state of shock. She asked me if I was okay and if I wanted to, and I responded with yes, although my body language was very obvious that I was uncomfortable with the situation.
What he is describing here is Sagittarius. Even if he said it was okay, he was still 13. He says, well, I said I was okay, but my body language was clearly not expressing that. He was still 13 years old. She's 19 at this point.
This was a continuous event that continued to happen over and over again. And when things were publicized back in October of 2020, I had talked to authorities and I lied to the police for her. Now, back in October of 2020, when things were publicized on the internet, I did talk to authorities and I did lie to the police because I was heavily manipulated and I was still in a sense of trying to protect her.
I genuinely think that the police failed this kid. I want to let you know, and I've never talked about this publicly, and that is because this isn't my story to tell. I want to let you know that yes, people do go to jail for shit like this. The experience that I know about when I was a kid, that person went to prison. That person was in prison for over a decade. I want it to be known that people do go to prison for this. She should go to jail for this. And I am disgusted that there has been no legal consequence so far for her. I genuinely think that there should have been more of an investigation. And I think that this is something that authorities should be more mindful of in the future, because a child that young is obviously afraid and is going to be afraid. And I think the system fails a lot of kids.
She had gotten into my brain so deep that she had told me if she went to jail for what she did, that she would off herself.
She weaponizes her mental health. She says, if I ever go to jail for this, I'm gonna end my life. Honestly, I'm sorry. Like, I am very, very sensitive when it comes to the topic of loss of life. This is absolutely manipulative. And this is something that you know that you are doing to keep this kid quiet.
And being only 13 years old, and again, this is someone you idolize and you look up to, that is going to mess with your head.
And I agree with what he said there. Of course it's going to mess with his head, of course, especially at that age. And she knows that. That's why she said it.
After this, they thought it wasn't a threat, they moved along, and Zoe still tried to pursue a relationship with me because she thought she was in the clear.
Like, this investigation happened, she knew it was wrong, and she still kept going. She still kept going. That's why I can tell for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion, I guess, she did not care. She does not care. She knew this was wrong. She said she knew it was wrong in video format. The only thing she cares about, probably, is her platform and following and consequences for her actions, but she does not care about the actions she does herself.
She would make fake Snapchat accounts to contact with me and my mom, cut off contact with us, and she would still make accounts to have desires to speak to me.
Now, this is really interesting because as she described it, she said, our parents decided it would be best for us both to cut contact, but he's describing it as, no, his mom had him cut contact off with her, and she continued to try and contact him on new accounts.
Now, after this incident, it has been 5 years, and I was bullied out of school, I was harassed, I was assaulted My family was harassed. I had false CPS reports. My house has been attempted to be swatted. My address was leaked. I've had to face so many repercussions because of this girl.
This is not only horrible, I genuinely feel terrible for Connor and his entire family for going through all of that, and I really think at this point it's safe to say she ruined this kid's life for so many reasons. But what's even more disturbing, this is something that I would have never even guessed would happen, because back when all of this first took place, I was certain that most people who knew about this situation would be like, yeah, that's messed up, Zoe's disgusting and in the wrong for this, but clearly she must have enough fans of hers that thought that Connor was the one in the wrong. I can't comprehend anybody thinking that he was the one in the wrong, but clearly she's manipulative enough to her own young audience that they have probably taken this to a point where they wanted to attack him, which is disgusting. It's really sad that he was bullied in school. It's really horrible. The safety of him and his entire family seemed like it was threatened. This is a situation where not only did she do all of these horrible things to him, he received consequences that he didn't even deserve. The wrath of her audience that is so huge, and at this point is still continuing to grow.
Now, I want to make it clear that I have tried to come out about my story and seek legal justice since then, and they have made every excuse they possibly could to not give me the justice that I deserve. I showed up with receipts, I showed up with proof, I showed up with everything, and they still did not want to believe me. The authorities had told me straight to my face that they had thought this was all conducted under a publicity stunt and we were doing this for views and attention, completely disregarding the straight laws and the straight proof that was right in front of their face. My case was dragged out for almost a year of just back and forth between we can do something, we can't, we can, we can't.
There is a terrible stigma, and I've seen it all over online, and I wouldn't doubt if it's treated similarly when it comes to cases in the system. There's this stigma towards young boys when it comes to women, where it's along the lines of, well, she is so pretty, she's attractive, you should feel proud and lucky that, like, no, this is still somebody being this is still somebody taking advantage of a child. There should have been more done. I think more investigating should have taken place. Even if he said no, nothing happened, I think if she was sending him stuff on the phone or doing anything like that, that they should have looked into that more. And he claims that he sent evidence about this to the police and it was dragged out, and so far nothing has become of it. That is so disheartening and such a failure of the system in general, and it's infuriating.
It's a very deteriorating feeling, though, to still face repercussions for a situation I was a victim in from 5 years ago, still to this day, while the person is walking free and can't even take the accountability to own up to what she did to me. As well as her friend Amber that lived here with her told me that she would testify for me and speak out for me because she lived there and watched everything happen and then proceeded to ghost the police and ghost me and not help me with my case, period.
I think it's scummy that somebody would tell him, I will support you and I will show up and testify against her, and then when it came to that moment, she wasn't involved.
Now, I will be making a part 2 to show all of the evidence that I do have to back up my claims, because these are very serious allegations and I'm not lying on anything that I'm saying. If you take a rewind back to lives that she had went on speaking about this back in the timeline, it is very obvious that she's guilty for a lot more than she was speaking about. I do appreciate all of you guys' support throughout the past years, and I'm sorry for all the time that it has taken, but it has taken me a lot of courage and time to finally be at peace to speak up about this while I'm still facing therapy after 5 strong years.
This is a message directly to Connor if he ever sees this video. Please never apologize for how long it will take you to feel comfortable speaking about something like this, especially something this severe. You owe nobody a specific date and time or explanation. This is your story. This is for you to share. And what she had done is disgusting. And there are many people who have noticed and seen that years ago and will still support you today. Do not let yourself feel bad or guilty for what she had done to you, because it is not your fault and you are not responsible for what happened in this situation. You were a child and you are still younger now than she was when she did what she did to you, which goes to show that there's no way she didn't know this was wrong. What else is wrong in my opinion is the fact that she spent the past 5 years continuing her career, growing over 4 million more followers than she had when all of this started, still living a very successful lifestyle, serving no consequences of this whatsoever, and we didn't even get into the worst of this yet. We still have a second part that Connor had uploaded, and what we're about to get into is far worse than what anybody could have imagined in this situation. There were originally 2 videos. One had been taken down. Luckily, I downloaded it before the video was taken down, and at first, I thought maybe he had taken the video down because some personal information had been in it. And when I looked back at it a second time, I noticed there were phone numbers that weren't censored out. I genuinely was under the assumption that maybe he had taken that video down and was planning to repost it because of the phone numbers. Maybe he forgot to block them out. I could totally see that being a mistake and unintentional, or maybe because he was talking about still trying to take a legal action, maybe he shared 1 or 2 pieces of information that he was like, oh, you know what, maybe I should dial that back. I thought he had taken the video down. Come to find out that no, he was not the one that took the video down. TikTok was. Why is TikTok taking that video down? By the way, there are parts of this video that I'm not going to be able to share because YouTube's policies are much stricter than TikTok's, and you might be thinking, well, maybe that's the reason why TikTok took the video down. He re-uploaded it with those parts taken out, and it was still taken down. Is it possible that that's the reason why? Maybe, but to me, it just seems a little bit weird because anytime anybody would make a video on Zoe Laverne back in 2020, their videos would get taken down or flagged as well. All I'm saying is it's peculiar. I'm not saying for sure why it was taken down. I just think it's weird. But yeah, we're only going to go over pieces of this video, but I'm going to do my best to explain what is going on and why this is reprehensible, allegedly.
To put it into words without this being taken down, I just want you guys to picture an adult relationship with everything involved as well as the factors. Majority of the things you can think of off the top of your head very much so did occur. And before I dive into actually showing the evidence, I do want to state that this was all given to the police and I was still shut down and told that she was an attractive girl, and am I sure that I didn't like it or enjoy it.
This is what I was discussing earlier. Young boys who are in SA situations, we'll say, seem to be taken far less seriously and seem to be brushed off because, wow, she's a really attractive girl. You should feel lucky that this happened to you. No, they're still children. It doesn't matter what the person looks like or what the gender is of the person it's happening to. They still need to be held responsible legally. And my suggestion to Connor is if he is still trying to pursue legal justice over this, if he has any evidence of any police officer or any authoritative figure dismissing him over this, I would see if there's any legal avenues he could take against that as well.
I also do want to clarify that whether I gave in the time or not, I still was only 13 years old and legally it was not the age of consent. Therefore, still does not make it anywhere near okay. I was also harassed and bullied out of school. I spent all of my high school years doing online school and I just now returned to in-person this year for my senior year because I wanted to have at least 1 year that I could remember and look back on my childhood years. I still am in therapy, still facing the trauma of this, and I will continue to face the trauma for this for the rest of my life. A lot of things people don't realize is that you are made off of your childhood, and when you experience such gruesome trauma as a child, it is only going to continue to affect me more and more the older that I get.
This is the devastating reality that Zoe caused. This is something that is not uncommon when it comes to children who were SA'd. This is something that not only affects them for the rest of their lives, but can make their later years even more traumatic. This is a devastating and gut-wrenching reality that happens to many children, no matter what gender they are. And again, the fact that this wasn't taken seriously by authorities makes me lose so much faith in humanity, honestly.
So this video that I'm about to show is a video of her on the phone with mutual friends of mine after everything had happened, and when polygraphs were being threatened for a lie detector test, this was her explaining how to lie on it.
Listen, if you want to lie on a polygraph, all you gotta do is just read, like when they ask you the question, think of the question as them asking, like, did you sleep with your dad? Then your heart won't race. I was like, what the? So I'm just scared that like Amber's gonna go live and try to say that Connor and I and then Cody was texting me saying that he has proof that we did and he doesn't. Like nobody has proof of it because we did it in secret.
This right here is her admitting that she indeed did take my innocence but there was no proof of it because we obviously didn't record it.
So Connor shows a clip of what he claims is Zoe talking about how to lie on a lie detector test, and also talking about how there was no proof of them doing anything because they did it in secret. And by that, in Connor's words, he means taking his innocence, which gives me the impression that this was in fact more than kissing, especially with what else he shares in this video.
My messages were on the top, commenting on how Zoe has literally messed me up so bad mentally and destroyed me as a person. And when my friends were gonna come stay here for a week, I was voicing I was scared to spend the night in a hotel with her. This was me texting my friend saying, how do I get myself out of this? I'm very uncomfortable. And also that she let off a little bit and it wasn't as bad as it was before.
So let's go back and read these messages. I did blur out the phone numbers. The first text in the first screenshot shares, Zoe literally effed me up, destroyed me, used me to make herself happy. She admitted to it as well, made me feel that I can't live without her. And when I moved on, she got pressed, which she shouldn't have because she literally has a boyfriend. But when I moved on, she got pressed and body shamed the person. Someone else says, you deserve better, and so did everyone who was friends with her. She just doesn't know how to treat people correctly and only ever thinks about herself for everything. Literally, please. Someone wrote, you have a girlfriend now. And he responds, no, I don't. The next text shared is what I'm assuming Connor in the gray and a friend in the blue. The friend writes, yep, but like you'll have me, Mia, and Nadia. Connor writes, I'ma tell her that, true. I'm just scared like if I stay in a hotel, like with no parents. The blue text says, or take pics, I want you to stay in the hotel. Connor wrote, so do I. And in the blue text it says, because it's just gonna be me and a bunch of girls. I don't know who this person is, how old they are, or what the lore is behind this person. This sounds like a terrible idea, but this is evidence that he was saying, you know, he is scared to stay with her alone in a hotel. And did that happen? Like, he's talking about being afraid to stay in a hotel with her, but did he end up staying in the hotel with her? Also, the conversation continues. The blue text says, that ain't good. Connor writes, but Josh, I guess blue text is Josh. Since y'all know about this, she's gonna do stuff and think it's funny. Who I now assume is Josh writes, I know. And Connor says, like, how do I get myself out of that position? Like, it just makes me uncomfortable. If this is back in 2020, this is a 13-year-old saying this, knowing that something's wrong here and they are not comfortable in the situation. Josh wrote, you see, when she was with me, she didn't try stuff with me because she didn't like me at the time. But, Connor writes, but again, like if y'all didn't know about us. And then it's partially cut off, but you could see Josh reply with, but she did take videos like wow first. There might be more to that, but the next text says, didn't y'all stop talking? He says, yes, bro. Blue text says, but like, Connor says, she keeps going. At least it's nothing like how it was before. The blue text says, yeah, I'm confused. Connor says, she doesn't call me hot or anything anymore, really. The blue text said, she did today. Connor wrote, it's just a few things here and there. Blue text says, yeah, true. She's singing this song to you, so enjoy. Connor wrote, Josh, bro, how do I get out of this? The next clip is pretty jarring, so he shares a video of Zoe talking about the accusations of Connor being the father of her child, which to all of my knowledge he is not, by the way. And she says, Connor can't produce that type of stuff, so he can't be the dad.
By the way, y'all sound kind of stupid when you try to say Connor's the dad, because he can't even produce that type of stuff.
Oh my god.
He's not old enough. He's not old enough.
First of all, how or why does she know that? Secondly, why is she wording it that way instead of saying, well, there's no way he could possibly be the father of my child because we were never intimate in that way?
This message was her saying, don't make me S your D again, which I think we can all infer what this means.
Take a peek at that date right there. That says July 24th, 2020. That would imply that she was in fact 19 and he was 13 years old. Just to reiterate.
These were TikToks that she had made directly from her account.
So when it comes to the videos that are shared as evidence, there are a lot of clips that I will not be showing in this video again because they're very disturbing. However, I do want to just go by this and just take a look at how young he looks here. This is the person that in that previous text message, she allegedly said, don't make me S your D again.
As well as this very disturbing one.
I'm pretty sure the song is copyrighted, but she lip syncs a song that says, I really don't know why it's such a big deal though. With the caption saying, you can't date a 13-year-old, it's illegal. Now, I did try and look this TikTok up myself and couldn't find it. That's not to say whether it exists or not. That's just to say I personally couldn't find it, and maybe I just missed it. If anybody could provide further information in the comments below, or just in general, that would be really awesome.
You guys can pause to read these, but this is her telling me that she's been risking her reputation for liking me, and that she doesn't want to go to jail, as well as stressing that there were being other videos sent around of us, as well as saying she was going to harm herself and off herself.
So the first set of texts are between Zoe and Connor, and then it looks like the second set of texts are from Zoe and Josh, which at this point, I don't know if Josh is Connor's friend or Zoe's friend. We don't know much about Josh. I obviously have numbers blocked out when they're shown, but let's get into the first set of text messages. The first set of text messages start out with Connor saying, "Tell my mom what?" Zoe responds, "You do what?" I guess she's freaking out a little bit and can't type. She continues, "I've been risking my reputation." Connor says, "How?" "For liking you, and I had to hide it." Connor wrote, "I deal with your fandom every day and I have to deal with all this drama." Zoe says, "I'm getting called an effing Well, I mean, who's fault is that, Zoe? Text messages between her and Josh start out with Zoe saying, "Josh, please be awake. I need you right now." Josh responds, "Hi, I'm here. What's wrong?" Zoe says, "Josh." He says, "Yes." She says, "I'm bawling my eyes out." He says, "Why? What's wrong?" Zoe says, "Because I don't want to hurt Connor, but it just hit me. He's a baby and I don't want to go to jail. I'm so scared." And now Amber is saying the same stuff to me. She sends a screenshot of a conversation between her and Amber. But again, all of this started in October. October is when everything started to become publicized online. It just hit her right as people started criticizing her for this, that, "Oh my gosh, he's a baby, what did I do?" When she even admitted in responses that they kept it a secret because they knew it was wrong. Or I'm sorry, she kept it a secret because she knew it was wrong, because a 13-year-old can't consent to any of this and was being manipulated by her. There's another screenshot between Josh and Zoe on February 17th, 2021, with Zoe starting out, "Josh," he says, "Yes." She says, "Did you send Tamika and Jaden anything about Connor and I? Like videos? Just be honest so I don't stress." He responds, "No, I generally haven't. I got sent a video and I watched it. They could see my phone and I didn't realize it, but I only watched 3 or 4 seconds of it, so they don't have anything and didn't." I think he meant to say sorry. She says, "What was the video?" He says, "I can't remember, but I know they mentioned stuff about it, and then they just brought it up now, and I haven't even sent them anything." And then a day later, he's talking about streaks. I'm guessing some sort of app like Snapchat. And then there's another message. This time I don't even know if it's with this Josh person, but it's from October 25th, 2020, saying, "Hi, it's Zoe, new number. I don't want to give up on him. I love him." I'm assuming referring to Connor. Blue text says, "I know you do. Just let things calm down a bit, you know?" She says, "Yeah." They respond with, "Promise, things will get better. Don't give up on yourself. You are strong and you will get through this." And then the next day an irrelevant conversation takes place. The last message shown in this snippet is between Zoe and Connor, I believe, starting with Zoe saying, "And now Garrett is treating me like crap." Connor says, "For what?" She says, "He said LOL night." And then Connor responds with, "You're gonna harm yourself over a Tinder boy? He's a POS dude. He's effing ugly." She says, "No, over you." This has to be some of the most deplorable stuff I have ever seen when it comes to covering a creator who is taking advantage of not only their power as an influencer over somebody, but their power as an adult over a child, and manipulating them with weaponizing their mental health and making a child feel scared for that person's safety and making it feel like it's their fault. The next part I really don't feel comfortable showing in this video, but there is a clip of her getting on top of him in a bed, and Connor claimed that when he showed this video footage to the police responded with, "This just looks like two people play fighting." In my opinion, it did not just look like play fighting, and I honestly believe that whoever the police officer was that Connor showed this to truly failed him in that moment when they said that.
The screenshot, you can see that she's laughing about it, saying, "Ha ha ha, I'm going to jail. Do you guys think prison has designer?"
So he claims that she responds by joking about going to jail and hoping that prison has designer. Hopefully they design a jail cell that she can't get out of, or maybe even a padded room for thinking that this is okay, or funny in any way whatsoever. He shares more clips that I really feel uncomfortable sharing in this video. Remember in the beginning of this video where she was talking about vaping in front of minors, and I said, make sure you hold on to that thought in the back of your head for the end of this video? Well, this is the part I want you to remember that, because in this next clip, Connor talks about and shares a video of her blowing vape smoke in his mouth. Again, I don't feel comfortable sharing this next clip, but I'll try my best to describe it. He shares a clip that looks like a poorly edited green screen video where Zoe Laverne is twerking, and it is green screened on top of an image of Connor's face. And the song used in the background of this video was saying, "I'm gonna make you wanna marry me." And there were other clips he shared, including another video where she was legitimately twerking on him.
This one you can pause and read, but this was her closest friend at the time who literally had stated that she could go to jail for knowing about it and not doing anything, and the top half is covered for privacy and personal reasons.
So the message from this friend states, "It's been making me cry every night thinking about it, but even everyone I've come in contact with here asks me about you and Connor. I obviously defend you, but it's bad. Now listen, I'm not trying to get in trouble, because if you went to jail for sleeping with Connor, I would go to jail for association for knowing about it and not doing anything. I've thought a lot about how to approach you about this, but I am very uncomfortable now with the thought of you sleeping with him, because that's mad jail time and it would ruin the entire rest of your life. Now I know he makes you happy. I'm not saying never see him again or anything like that, obviously, but both of you need to stop posting with each other every day. You guys need to stop posting the photos on each other's backs and in bedrooms and everything. Like, this person doesn't actually care about Connor. This person cares about not getting in trouble and keeping Zoe out of trouble. They're complicit in this, and I'm not going to say just as bad as Zoe, but pretty friggin' awful to be giving this type of advice instead of just saying, "Hey, this is really messed up, you shouldn't be doing this, and I'm out." This sounds more like, "Oh, I'm afraid that people are gonna find out about this and I'm gonna get in trouble by association." Also, I'm just going off of patterns and context clues, considering that the name at the top starts with an A and we see a reoccurring name of Amber throughout this situation. I have a feeling that it may be that person, but I can't confirm that with certainty. But if it is, that's horrible, because first we have that text message between Amber and one of Zoe's exes talking about how Amber knew Connor's mother, but we don't know if she actually said anything to her. And then in Connor's first video, he talks about someone named Amber saying that they were going to stand up for him legally, and then she ghosted him, allegedly. And then we have this text message from somebody titled A saying all of this stuff and seemingly only caring about themselves in this situation.
Another one, her stating that she was harming herself because I said some mean things to her, and that she told me that she would bleed dry for me, which is very, very manipulative, as well as would send me pictures of her self-harm.
This is another text message between her and a friend talking about how she was harming herself over Connor. She says, "I'm done, I'm leaving, I'm coming back up. So Connor and I started fighting and he was saying a lot of hurtful things to me. So I hurt myself because I told him I would bleed dry for him. And I walk in the room to hear Haley say, 'Not the ketchup.'" What the dude, oh my god. I can't read the full thing, but I'm assuming the person in the blue text says, "Zoe, please don't hurt yourself." And Zoe says, "My pain isn't fake. I've been hurting for months." While I was editing this video, I also caught another clip from one of her TikToks that says, "Send this to someone you would bleed dry for." And she's still wearing that damn bracelet. But to be fair, I can't say with 100% certainty this was definitely about Connor. I'm only able to say that I speculate and assume. Girl needs to see a therapist, a doctor, everybody except for Connor. And he also claims that she would send him pictures of what she did to herself. I am so sorry. This is genuinely psychotic behavior. And on top of that, this is purely evil, manipulative shit.
I do want to say that there is more evidence behind this. I obviously just can't fit it all into one video. TikTok will only allow me to update 35 items into the video. But I do want to say that there is a lot more that specifically shows, but this in itself right here I think clarifies well enough that it was a lot more than just a kiss. I also want to emphasize as well that I have been making videos about it throughout the years, and I think that what a lot of people need to process is that it's common sense. If all that I had done was just kissed her, it would be absolutely diabolical for me to still be on the internet 5 years later speaking about it. She was not entirely secretive. She had a very, very, very bad history of thinking she could trust people. Therefore, she would tell lots and lots of people about what me and her did. I do also want to state that she did text close friends of mine personal details on our experiences, which would make my friends feel very uncomfortable, that I do not have the proof to give right now, but I can reassure and validate that this did happen.
So this is a lot to take in, but the biggest point to take away from this part of the video is that he is sharing all of this information to try and prove that there was more than just kissing that happened in this. And personally, with everything I have seen through these messages, through all of these clips that were shared, I know I couldn't share all of them, but they are out there. I believe believe it. People have already come out in mass quantities talking about how awful this was 5 years ago when it first surfaced online. And just to remind you, I was one of those people that did talk about this back then as well. It should have stopped right there, but she continued to grow. She continued to thrive while this poor kid has had to endure so much trauma from this situation.
I just want to say I thank you guys so much for all of your patience and support and for everything you guys are contributing to me in my situation. I have faced a lot of backlash for years, and I'm very, very happy to see the outcome of this, but morally, I just want to spread awareness on stuff like this and make it valid that men can also be victims.
So this video did end kind of abruptly, but I completely agree with what he's saying here. I genuinely believe that if this were a young girl talking about a man who had done this to her, it would be over in 10 seconds. Every corner of public, mainstream, and social media would be all over this like flies on. But when it comes to young boys, it is not treated the same. And women who do this to young boys, especially if they do have attractive features, receive far less scrutiny. And that's something that I genuinely think needs to change, because children are children, and what Zoe did in this is criminal behavior and should be treated as such. This truly puts into the perspective that regardless of how disgusting a person is, they will still be able to have a TikTok audience or whatever, especially on TikTok. Actually, when it comes to that platform, people forget so fast. The attention span on that app is so rapid. I am perplexed to see she has grown millions and millions of more followers since then. Sure, she might not be at Charli D'Amelio's level, and she still may be crying about that in her sleep, but when it comes to how many people still watch her TikToks, she still gets millions of views. She still gets a plethora of engagement. Although she recently cut the comments off, and you know, I couldn't imagine why. That's totally a coincidence, I'm sure. She should be suffering legal consequences of this. It seems like no matter how many people spoke out about this years ago, she's still successful, while this poor kid seems like he's gone through hell and is suffering with what she had done to him. And hopefully in the future things change, but as of right now has gotten no legal justice whatsoever. This is something that should not have been shrugged off the way that it was. This is something she desperately needs to seek consequences for. I personally believe legally his videos should not be getting taken down speaking about this. Like my video title said, is TikTok protecting Zoe Laverne? Maybe. And if they're not, they're doing a very terrible job at making it seem like they're not. Thank you so much if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, and thank you so much to everybody supporting me through memberships and over on Patreon. With that being said, I will see you in another video very, very, very soon. I have so many things I want to talk about, so many topics to go over, so many things to catch up on. I'm also going to be discussing the Kayla Malik situation and James Charles and a whole bunch of other stuff. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.